I have a lot of books on my shelf that I think are going to be 5-star reads. So join me today, my friends, as I start my new vlog, which is a 5-star prediction reading vlog. Hello, my bookworm friends. Yes, this is another reading vlog, and I am super excited to get started with this one today because, as I said in the introduction, it is a 5-star prediction reading vlog. So I have a ton of books on my TBR, which I honestly believe are going to be 5 stars. So I decided to pick 3 of them and to make a reading vlog of those 3 books. So in this introduction, let me just very quickly tell you which 3 books I'm going to be reading, why I think these might be 5 stars, and then we can kick things off and get going with the vlog. So the first book I am going to read is one that many of you might have read already. I know I'm a little bit late to the party, but this one is called We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. Now, I've heard that this is one of those books that people don't easily understand. It has been compared to House of Leaves and some other books. I mean, I haven't read House of Leaves, but I've heard it compared to that. And I've heard that it's very twisty. It's very much like a puzzle. You have to concentrate and have your thoughts together because you have to work out what's going on. And I tend to love books like that, provided they end well and that they end in a way that I understand what was happening through the story. Then I love a twisty, turny story that is very difficult to, well, let me not say very difficult to follow, but that challenges us as readers. And so I am predicting that this one will be a 5-star read for me for those reasons. It gets a lot of praise and a lot of 5 stars from reviewers and YouTube reviewers that I follow. And so I'm very excited for this one. I know it's not a specifically new story, but obviously I am only getting to it now. So that is going to be the first book that I am going to read. Then the second book that I have decided to pick up is this one over here. This is called Tell Me What You Did by Carter Wilson. This is another story that I have been hearing rave reviews about. People just say it's fast, it's twisty, it's just a plot-based great fun time. And it also gets a lot of 5 stars from people that I follow. I have read the blurb obviously about the story, and it really does sound like something I am going to enjoy. If I have my facts correct, I think there is something in the story about the podcaster who does this podcast where she invites people who have done really bad things to come onto the podcast and to confess basically to their sins and to tell her what they have done. And then she finishes the podcast, she wraps things up, and she never thinks of these people again. However, in this specific story, I think one of the people that then phones in has something to do with something bad that happened in this podcaster's past. This person murdered, was it her mother or a family member or something like that? And he then comes onto the podcast and she works out who he is, and all sorts of drama ensues from there. So, I mean, could that be more interesting? I think that sounds like such a fascinating, fun time. In terms of a thriller, I mean, that just sounds like something that I am going to love. So I am super excited to get to this one. And obviously, it is another one that I am expecting to be a 5-star read for me. And that is why it is making it into this video. Now, both these first 2 books I actually have on my Kindle. So I will be reading them on my Kindle. I might add the audio books as well at the same time. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it exactly. But then for the third book in this video, I actually have the book as a hardback, and that is this one. This is called House of Glass by Sarah Pekkanen. Now, this one has been on my shelf for some time. I've been wanting to read it for some time, and I just haven't gotten around to it. Now, this is not a book that I've been hearing a lot about lately, but I do remember at a time I was hearing quite a bit about it, and the blurb sounded really interesting because basically what you are dealing with here is there's a nurse, or I think she's a nanny, or a housekeeper, I'm not even sure, and she falls to her death, right? And the little girl that she tends to babysit is a 9-year-old by the name of Rose, and Rose apparently witnesses her fall and she becomes mute. And then you have an attorney, some sort of family attorney, that is then appointed to this case to try and get to the bottom of what actually happened. she is there to protect Rose, basically. So in trying to protect Rose and see why Rose has gone mute, she needs to try and get to the bottom of this murder. So I think it sounds fascinating, because a mute 9-year-old, to me, and where that story could go in terms of the plot, there are all sorts of options. And so I just think it sounds right up my alley. And I'm very excited and very hopeful that this is going to be a cracker of a thriller, and that I'm going to love it. And obviously that I'm going to award 5 stars to it. So that, in summary, is what I'm planning to get through in this vlog. So without further ado, and in order not to waste any more time, and also because I'm super excited to get to all of these thrillers, let me get started, and I will check in with you guys along the way. Okay, bookworms, so it's time for check-in number 1. So I just wanted to let you all know that I decided to start with this book. This is We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. Now, I can't tell you why specifically I decided to start with this one. I was just looking at the books that I had shortlisted for this video, and this one jumped out at me. Now, this one is a debut. It's not specifically new. I think it might have been released in 2024. But anyway, I have started it. I'm actually reading it on my Kindle. And so I thought I would give you guys an update on what I think. So I am currently at 53%. I've gotten here fairly quickly. I mean, not immensely quickly, but fairly quickly, because I am engaged. Things are going well. So this one is a thriller, but actually more horror. It's described as horror slash thriller slash paranormal. I was really attracted to this book because of the paranormal aspect together with the horror aspect. Because as some of you may know, I read Incidents Around the House earlier this year, which is a paranormal horror, and I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with it. It was a wonderful 5-star read for me. And so that's why I decided, I think, to start with this one. So like I say, things are going well. I'm interested. I am finding maybe there's some slight pacing issues at times. Like at times I'm sort of like, okay, can the story just progress now? But then at other times, I'm quite happy with the pacing. So in this story, you've got a couple. They've bought an old house out in the countryside, which they want to renovate or tear down and rebuild. I don't think they've decided yet. And they are living in this house when a family arrives. This family just rocks up on their doorstep and knocks and says, hello, we used to live in this house. Is it okay if we come and look around? They are let into the house, they have a look around, but this is where the story starts to get interesting, because from the minute they arrive, all sorts of strange things start to happen in this house. So, for example, this couple that arrive on the doorstep, they arrive with 3 children. The youngest one, I think she's the youngest one, is the daughter. She goes missing in the house at some point. And the parents just make like it's not a big deal, and she likes to run off and hide, and at some point she will come out. But when you're reading this book and you're getting to those chapters, there's just a feeling of unease, like that is maybe not the true story or the whole story. And so, I mean, obviously I've gone through those sections and that was pretty creepy. And then there are just other creepy things happening in the house, you know, apparitions and seeing of ghosts, perhaps, that type of thing. So I really am enjoying all of that. Like I say, maybe some slight pacing issues in that at times the story does seem to be dragging a little bit. But the author is doing a marvelous job of creating a very freaky and eerie atmosphere. I can't explain it to you because nothing has happened in terms of giving me a huge shock or a huge fright or anything like that. But there are sections of this book where, as I'm reading, I'm just getting the absolute creeps, and I'm actually feeling very unsettled and very uncomfortable, which I suppose, I mean, for a horror novel, that's exactly what you want, right? So I think I'm not going to say more than that. I'm obviously not going to do another check-in until I finish this book. So when I've finished, I will come back here and I will let you know what I think, how things went, and what star rating I'm going to give. I mean, as long as the ending is amazing, this might be a 5-star read, but who knows? For now, let me not tempt fate. Let's just see how we go. And so, yeah, my friends, I will see you again as soon as I'm finished this one. Hello, my friends. Time for the next check-in. So the good news is that I finished We Used to Live Here. The bad news is I didn't end up loving it. So I'm going to give this one 3 stars. It just wasn't a book that worked for me 100% because I finished that book and I was like, what the F did I just read? And I'm quite good with reading books and novels and stories where one can be a little bit confused. But this story, by the end of it, I was just totally stumped. I know that in my first check-in, I think I was about 52% of the way through it, and I was actually quite enjoying it because I don't think my mind had actually processed how confusing it all was and the fact that it wasn't going to all come together very nicely at the end. So I was already confused at the 52% mark, but I just presumed that that was normal. Everything would fall into place. Everything would become clear by the end. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. It was one of those books where when I finished it, I was like, what? I actually had to go onto YouTube and I've watched probably 2 or 3 review videos where the titles of those reviews are about explaining the book. So, I mean, that already says everything. If there are tons of YouTube reviewers who are filming lengthy, like 1 hour, 2 hour videos, trying to explain to everybody what they think happened in the book, then you must know. So, I mean, I didn't completely hate it, and it did have its plus points, which is why I'm going to give it 3 stars, because a 3-star review for me is I liked it, but it wasn't great, and I'm slightly on the fence. A 3-star review for me is a book that I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but that I think might appeal to some people and that I only found okay. And so I think I'm going to end on 3 stars. If you are someone who likes to, let me say, I don't want to say likes to be confused when you're reading, because I don't know if anyone really likes that. But if you like a book where things are not what they seem, where you really have to apply your mind, you have to try and work out what's going on, it's like a little bit of a puzzle. And there are clues and there are hints given throughout the book, but you actually have to really apply your mind to this read and try and decode what's going on. And almost like, like I say, it's like a puzzle. If that sort of thriller / horror is going to work for you, then definitely give this one a try. So many people have loved this one. So many YouTube reviewers have given it 5 stars. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be one of them. It was just okay for me. I really just found it too confusing. By the end, I don't even know who was a good person, who was a bad person, who was a real person, who was maybe another person, what dimension we were in, what time zone we were in. No, it was just too much for me. And I think because when I read, I'm really reading very emotionally. I like to feel emotion. I like to get taken away by the story, but I also like a story to make sense. A story must make sense to me. And even if it doesn't make sense while I'm reading it, it's okay if it makes sense by the end. This one didn't do any of those things. So I'm going to leave it there. I finished the book 3 stars. I gave it. So unfortunately, this is a 5-star prediction video, and I'm not going to be giving it 5 stars. So book number 1, unfortunately, was a flop. But I then moved on to reading this book. So this book is called Tell Me What You Did by Carter Wilson. Now, this is another book that I've heard a ton about. It is a thriller slash mystery novel. A lot of people were giving this one 5 stars. And when I read about it and heard about it, I thought this was going to be a 5-star read for me. Hence why it is in this vlog video. Now, I had initially intended to read maybe 30, 40, 50% and then to give you guys an update. But unfortunately, life has been very hectic for me lately. And on a good note, this book completely gripped me. And the news is I have finished it. I started it and finished it. And I'm very happy to say I absolutely loved this read. I ended up giving it 4 stars. There were times when I thought, could this possibly be a 5-star read for me? But I think I've mentioned to you all before that when I read, when I finish a book, a lot of the time my ratings are quite emotional. How did I feel about the book when I finished it? How entertained was I? How much fun was the book? And I'm happy to say this is a 4-star read for me, my friends. Now, 4 and 5-star reads for me mean that these are books that I would recommend to people. I recommend them to you, and I think that most people are going to get enjoyment of a book. Like if I rated 4 or 5 stars, I'm quite sure that the majority of people are really going to enjoy it and have some fun with it. And that is how I feel about this book. I really enjoyed the sort of podcast element of the story. I enjoyed the fact that right from the get-go, there is a transcription. So every few chapters, okay, so let me put it to you this way. You've got your normal story and your normal chapters. And then in between those, you've got this transcription of a podcast happening between 2 people. But you don't know from the get-go, you're not exactly sure who are these 2 people? How do they fit in together? From the transcripts, you can tell, something is not kosher. Something bad is going on, but you're not quite sure what. And I really loved that. I loved the whole setup and how the book was written in that way. And I also just thought the whole concept of the story was just really, really interesting. So basically, the main character, Poe, has this podcast channel where she invites people who have done bad things to come onto her show and to basically confess to the bad things that they've done. And the story goes from there. And I thought it was so fascinating because, of course, somebody phones in with a really terrible story that in some way links to Poe's past and to something really tragic and terrible that happened in her past. I thought this one was so much fun. I read it very quickly. It was a fast-paced read. This is a read that I would say is very, very plot-driven. So if you are someone who likes slower-paced books, perhaps where you do a deep dive into the characters and the characters are really well fleshed out and developed, then this won't necessarily be the thriller for you. But for somebody like me who is totally fine with a plot-based, fast novel, this one ticks the boxes for me. Now look, even for me, I do like a little bit of character development in my thrillers and in my books, and this one really had very little of that. So the characters, although entertaining and fun, you don't get really to know them on any sort of deep level. Even their interactions with each other just seem to be wham bam, this happened, that happened. There's no real background, there's no real depth and growth to the characters or to their relationship. So I would say this is a plot driven, fast-paced thriller. And if you enjoy those, if you are just looking for some good escapism, if you are just looking for a read that you can get lost in, that is fairly quick and gripping, and that's going to have you turning the pages, then I do suggest this one. So I really enjoyed it. I gave it not 5 stars. I gave it 4 stars. It was immense fun. It was really quick and easy to read, and I had a good time with it. And I was okay with the ending. I know there've been 1 or 2 people out there who have said the ending was a bit of a letdown. I was fine with the ending. I really couldn't see any other way necessarily that this story could end. And I was fine with it all. And yes, my friends, success, because it was 4 stars. Okay, so it wasn't 5 stars, but it was 4 stars. So I'm happy to say that it was a good read, even though it wasn't 5 stars. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to leave things here. I'm going to move on to my next book in this video, and I will do a catch up at some point when I can. Life for me has just been going on as normal. I've had a few errands to do, a few chores to run. I had to go to our local mall. And other than that, I don't have some massive big plans. It's winter here now. It's cold and chilly. So we are just cooking nice hearty food at night and doing those type of things. And so, yes, I am looking forward to moving on to my next book. And I will catch up with you guys again soon. Right, friends, I am back just with a very quick check-in because I wanted to let you guys know how I am doing with House of Glass by Sarah Pekkanen. So I'm actually doing pretty well with this one. I have gotten to, where's my bookmark now? There. I have read that much. So I am currently on page 138. It's chapter 29, and it's about 40% of the way through the book. The good news is this one is going very, very well. I am having fun with it. I'm enjoying it. Can I predict if it's going to be a 5 star at the moment? I don't think so. I'm enjoying it enough to say it's probably going to be a 3.5 or a 4 star. At the moment, probably not a 5 star, but again, let me not jinx it because who knows? Something could happen and this one could end up being fantastic. At the moment, I'm really enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. We are following Stella, who is a best interests attorney. And she normally works with teens, but she decided to take on the case of Rose, who is a 9-year-old girl who is mute. She saw something happen. Basically, she saw the death of her nanny at her house. And since that day, she has gone mute and she hasn't been able to speak. So like I say, I'm about 40% of the way through. Things are going well. At first, this seemed like a fairly run-of-the-mill setup, a run-of-the-mill thriller, but I can tell that things are starting to happen which are making me think that the story may be going in a different direction to what I initially thought. Basically, it's my thoughts are going towards, is Rose, the 9-year-old, as innocent as she seems? Is she just an innocent victim caught up in this divorce that her parents are going through, as well as obviously having witnessed the death of her nanny? Or is there more going on? Was she somehow involved? That is sort of where I am at the moment. The writing style is not 100% for me, in all honesty. It doesn't have the sort of finesse and the flair of some of my favorite authors like an Ashley Winstead, for example. That the writing style is fairly basic. There's nothing dynamic necessarily about it. And so that's why this one probably wouldn't end up being a 5 star read for me. But in terms of the plot, in terms of the story itself, in terms of the characters and where things are going, yes, I'm interested. Stella, being the attorney, she also has a background, which is, I don't want to say shady, but let's just say she had a very difficult childhood. Her father, we learn this very early on, and I think this is, in fact, even said in the blurb. Her father was killed when she was very young. Her mother had an addiction problem, a drug problem, and obviously she didn't have a good childhood because of that. And so some of the things in the story are starting to, I don't want to say link to her own childhood, but things that are happening here to Rose are making Stella also flashback and think to her own childhood. So we are seeing those chapters as well. So in general, it's fairly plot driven. There is a fair amount going on. And like I've already said, I am pretty invested. So yeah, definitely keen to see where this one is going to go. For now, I'm not so sure it's going to be a 5 star read, but like I've said, who knows? I'm enjoying it. It's definitely fun. It's a fairly easy, fast-paced read. So I'm going to keep going with this one, my friends. And then I think the next check-in you will see from me will be once I finish this one, I will let you know my final review and rating and what I thought, my final thoughts. And then I will pretty much wrap up this reading vlog. Hello, my friends. I'm back and I'm here to wrap up this reading vlog, which, in all honesty, did not go very well. I am here to tell you that I have finished House of Glass, and my feelings are, no, it didn't work for me. I didn't like it. I didn't love it. I didn't really enjoy it, and I ended up giving it 2 stars. Now, that is pretty unexpected, I know, because when I did my last check-in, I was telling you guys that things were going well. I think at that stage I was probably about 35–40% through the book, and things were going well. And I thought the story was going in a certain direction that I was really going to like. It was going to make it very interesting, very fascinating if it had gone in that direction. But unfortunately, very, very soon after filming that little insert in this vlog, things started to go pear-shaped for me with this one. I was just bored. I just found the story to be bland. It was nothing special. It was nothing different. You know, thrillers lately are being criticized for just all being very similar and very run-of-the-mill. And I think that pretty much sums up my experience with this book. Unfortunately, I just found it run-of-the-mill. There was nothing dynamic about it. There was nothing different about it. As I already mentioned to you guys, the writing style was also 100% not for me. It was pretty bland. It was pretty boring. There was just nothing dynamic about it. There was nothing about the writing style or even the characters to really grab me and make me want to read more. And I also do remember saying to you guys that there were almost 2 plots in the story. There was the whole plot around the nanny that fell to her death and the 9-year-old Rose who saw this incident and is now mute. But then there was also a secondary plot around Stella, who is the main female lead character in the story. She is the attorney who is trying to get to the bottom of what happened to Rose. There's a plot in the story around her history, her past. And I just thought that in some way, I didn't know how, those 2 plots were going to come together. The sad news is they didn't really do that. They didn't come together. I don't know why the Stella plot needed to be there. But even with the Stella plot, this story to me was just too run-of-the-mill. It was just too boring. It was just nothing amazing. The whodunit by the end of the book was like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. I could sort of see that. The book didn't go in the direction that I wanted. And as I've already mentioned, I just didn't love the characters. Stella, I was only okay with her. I found her a little bit of a pain, actually, at times. Then you've got Rose, who's this 9-year-old girl who you actually can't form any bond with because she doesn't speak. So she never speaks, she never interacts really with the characters, so it's very difficult to really form a bond with her. Then Rose's parents are portrayed as troubled individuals, but they are doing their best. And then Granny is around, and sometimes Granny is normal, and sometimes Granny is acting weird and, you know, all over the show. And I just didn't really feel any massive, I don't know, interest in any of the characters. So, okay, I'm not going to draw this out much longer other than to say it was 2 stars for me. I thought it was looking like about a 3.5 star when I was at 40%. I thought probably a 3.5 star, maybe if I'm very lucky, a 4 star. But by the time I finished this one, I was just, it's not even a 3, because a 3 for me is a book that was okay, that I sort of enjoyed. I could see that maybe other people would enjoy it, even though I didn't fall in love with it. But this one, I can't even say that. This was just a book that I didn't enjoy. Like I say, the plot didn't go where I wanted it to. It was boring. The writing was fairly run-of-the-mill and fairly bland. The characters were uninteresting. So I'm going to leave it there, my friends. 2 stars then for this book. And in conclusion of this video, so I'm ending with a 2 star, which is pretty sad. I mean, this video was a 5-star prediction vlog. So things did not go very well for me in this video. So in conclusion then, my friends, thank you so much for joining me in this vlog. I am so happy that you stuck around, hopefully until the end. Hopefully it was an interesting vlog, even though these did not turn out to be 5 stars. So of the 3 books I read, not one 5-star, but I did have a 4-star, and that read, as I have explained to you guys, was really good, and I definitely recommend that one. It was fast, it was fun, and it was a great read. So on that note, I am going to wish you all happy reading, my friends. Bye.